Hello, my name is Rebecca Antoine, and this is my tutee lesson plan presentation. At my school, I currently run the kindergarten intervention math program. So in my classroom, I have 10 students that are really below the kindergarten standards. A lot of them struggle with one-to-one correspondence and just number ordinality. The student that I had chose is one of the students in my intervention group. His name is Balin. His other general ed teacher recommended extreme intervention due to his ADD and attention deficits. In the presentation, I will go over the different goals and one of our lesson plans that we had ran through that I thought was successful. After talking with his teacher and also working with him a month prior, I came up with two math goals that I wanted him to really focus on during our times together. One of them was just being able to, when I give him an object to count and a choice of three numbers to represent it, Balin will count and demonstrate one-to-one correspondence by counting and clipping, marking, or pointing to the correct total with 80% accuracy. Another goal that I want him to work on too is when given a set of objects within 20, Balin will be able to write the corresponding numbers with 80% accuracy. As you see on the bottom is a copy of his assessment that I gave him. During the assessment, as you see, the ones with the check marks, he was able to tell me what number that was and show me that number with manipulatives. The ones with the underlined numbers, he was not able to tell me the number or correctly use the manipulatives for that. So I wanted to make sure that during these lessons, I wanted to focus on those specific numbers that he missed. Here are the two standards that I incorporated throughout the lessons. One of them was just being able to count to 100 by ones and tens. The other one is being able to write numbers from 0 to 20, representing a number of objects with a written numeral. Both of these standards are the ones that he really struggled in, and that's why I wanted to make sure the lessons are focused towards that. The intervention binder. This is actually a really amazing tool that my principal introduced to me. It's a very targeted and focused math skill binder. As you see on the picture, it gives you the table of contents, so it has a very specific games and activities and just ways to engage the students on each of the different titles. I use this daily as either warm-ups or as independent practice for the students that I'm working with. For my student Balin, what I used it for actually both our warm-up and a different section for his practice time. On the bottom, I also provided a link to where I got the intervention binder if you want to check it out. There is actually an English one as well, which is also very helpful. All it is printed sheets, and what I did is I put them inside sheet protectors, and the students get to use dry erase markers on them, so we get to use them over and over again. I just wanted to make sure I share that because I thought it was a great resource, especially for new teachers. So the lesson that I'm going to kind of go over is our second time together. So in the beginning on the engage part, what we did is we used the intervention binder. The page that we use is called Find It, Circle It, and Read It for number 6. In that page, there's actually 10 different number 6s on the page. But what's really cool about it is all in different fonts. Some of them are really funky, some of them are really traditional, and it's supposed to encourage the student to really use their eyes and really use their skill to see if that's actually the number. Now, my student did have a little bit of trouble because he was confusing number 6 with number 9, but once I gave him another visual representation of both of those numbers, it helped him find all the number 6s on the page. Now, another reason I like to use this as well is because there is only 10 number 6s. So after he circled all the number 6s he can find, he did have to go back and count all the numbers 6s he circled to make sure there was 10 of them. After he completed it the first time, there was only about 8, so he knew he still needed to find more. So being able to go back and count also helped with his one-to-one correspondence. Next, on the explore section, what we did is I let him create a number line. My student is actually a very hands-on learner. He likes to cut and glue and color and, create things. So I thought being able to create a number line would be very helpful for him to see his work and to be able to go and show his work to his teacher and his mom. So we did practice his fine motor skills. As you see in the picture, he is kind of holding the scissors funky. But I also wanted to make sure that I let his teacher know maybe that's something she didn't catch in the classroom. But luckily with my student, once I kind of gave him corrections, he was able to correct his scissor grip and use it a little better. Making the number line also helped practicing the order that the numbers go in, and also it gave him another opportunity to reinforce his counting. Also too, the number line, we will be using it in another activity that we did the following week, and actually just in the overall intervention math class that I have, we're using that for another activity as well. So this is like a 3-part activity for him. Then on to the explaining section. What I did is we reviewed numbers 6 and 7 from our last session a little bit, just to make sure we reinforce it and practice it so he doesn't forget what the number 6 and number 9 looks like visually and with manipulatives. But during this session, what we did is we focused on the number 12 and number 20 because those were the next 2 numbers that he missed on his assessment. What I did is I gave him roughly 4 to 10 different cards, and each of them had a different number on them, but they were shown in various ways. On the bottom, I provided a picture of what the cards looked like whole before I cut them up and laminated them. So as you see, some of them are dice, some of them are tally marks, some of them are 10 frames, and some of them are fingers. And what we did is each card, my student had to look at the card, practice counting what the number was on there, and then on the whiteboard he would write the number. He did have a little challenges on writing down the number. That's why I provided the number line, so he was able to use his finger to kind of count on the number line to that number he needed, and then visually see it and practice writing it on the whiteboard. Then from there, we did practice other numbers besides 12 and 20. I wanted to just get some reinforcement and practice of other numbers, but we really wanted to make sure he understood what number 12 looked like in multiple ways, what number 20 looked in like multiple ways, and just being able to practice writing it as well. Then on in the elaborate and evaluate section, what we did is we utilized that number line that we had previously started to make. And what I did is I provided him stickers. He actually really loves the stickers in our classroom. So what we did is we used the stickers to place under each of the numbers to represent their quantity. So for example, under number 4, there will be 4 stickers. But during this lesson, it did take a little longer than I expected to cut and glue. So we were only able to do numbers 1 through 10 with the stickers, but next lesson we were going to use the 11 through 20 to add the stickers on there. The good thing about the number line and the stickers, it also provided a visual evaluation of the student's understanding. So I kind of I gave him the stickers and I let him go with the activity. So if he accidentally put 5 stickers underneath number 4, then I was able to see like, oh, it was an accident, he took it off, or maybe he was really confident in putting it down and didn't even check that it was a mistake, and then I would know that, hey, maybe we need to go back and work on number 4. I would say though, throughout this 1 through 10 with the stickers, he actually did really well on number 6 and number 9. I think it was just because of the exposure and the continuous practice of the number 6 and number 9 that he did really well on those 2 numbers. Just some reflections that I had got from this lesson. Our prior lesson, we actually had a hard time focusing in the room due to all the different things in my room and that he wasn't really used to seeing before. So that was kind of distracting for him. So what I did this time is we kind of walked around the room. I let him explore things. He loves to ask questions. So I let him ask any questions he had about the room or different toys or manipulatives, whatever I had in there before we started our lesson. And I think that really helped him focus throughout the lesson because he wasn't so worried about looking around at different things because he already had time to explore and look at it. He really liked the intervention binder from the first lesson. So before we even started our lesson, he actually asked if we can use the binder again during the lesson, and he asked if I can make him one at home. I think the binder made him feel really successful in math instead of being discouraged. And I thought it was great that he asked for one at home just to be able to practice. And he wanted to show his family that he could count and he could write his numbers. So I told him that I would make him a smaller version of it that he can take into his classroom and he can take home to work on too. Like I said before, I did notice the weird scissor grip. That's the why I took the picture to make sure I showed his teacher. Also too, he is a hands-on learner. So I did want to make sure I incorporated a lot of activities and crafts, things like that to kind of keep him engaged and keep the learning going for him. Also too, I noticed that on the first lesson, the chair that I provided for him, he was really squirmy and wiggly. So what I did before the lesson started is I also provided him an option of either a wiggle chair or a kickband. He actually have not tried a wiggle chair before, so we talked about the rules and the agreements for it, and he tested out a little bit. And I noticed that during the lesson, he was actually able to focus a little bit more too because his body was kind of moving on the bottom, but his hands were on top going through the activity. Overall, I think the lesson was pretty successful. One challenge that I did not take into account or did not foresee was how long it would take for him to cut the numbers and to glue the numbers on the number line. Something in the future, I would probably have the lesson either go over a couple of days so the student can continue practicing, or I would probably pre-cut the numbers so it's easier for the student just to practice gluing and putting them in order. And that's about it. Thank you for listening.